Let's talk about the late breaking news. We're taping
Hmm.
this on Monday night. Howie Kendrick announced his retirement from Major League Baseball after 15 years. He's going to hang the cleats up. Did it on Instagram literally minutes before we started taping this.
Right.
First, how shocked were you? You said you had an inkling that this might happen, but just the news coming out, what's your overall reaction?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. As we were talking about before we started, I had heard some rumblings that this was going to happen and just was not able to hammer it down enough to print it or spit it out publicly. So, you know, there are still portions of this industry where you're worried about being right instead of being first. Uh, that's not the case everywhere, but it still happens. So, he was so torn at the end of the season. That's what struck me most is um, he said he needed to talk to his family, which is typical. He said he thought he could still play, also typical. He said that he would have retired anyway if it had been a full season, right? If they had gone through a normal season and a title defense and the full 162 and everything wasn't derailed. So, um, when you hear somebody say that they had already kind of decided what they would do beforehand, and then they go through a tumultuous season, it's not that surprising to me that he decided that that's enough. You get home, you see your family, you talk to your wife. Presumably, she has many thoughts about what you should be doing at this point after being on the road for 15 years. And he has two young sons who we would always see at the stadium. Um, so, there comes a time for everybody where they have plenty of money, they've done plenty of things. He won, he had enormous moments on the way there, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, what would be the point of playing one more year other than, just competitively? I think you always want to do that. If you're an athlete, you would always play one more year if you could. But at some point, it becomes a better idea not to play that one more year.
To be honest, when I was looking at this, I was a little bit surprised.
Sure.
2020, he was hampered by injuries. He didn't play the entire year. If there was like the entire year of the half year or whatever.
Right.
But it kind of struck me a little bit. I was thinking that he would try to give it a full go and trying to not go out like that, because the lasting memory I have of Howie Kendrick of 2019 and everything, and then 2020, he was just kind of limping around and he wasn't the same guy.
Yeah. And, what's interesting is that, and I've thought about this recently with Ryan Zimmerman and a few other people. And I was talking to Max Scherzer last week and asking him kind of what, if he had a timeline in his head for when he's going to retire. And it made me think back to when Kobe Bryant first announced his retirement. The second game, his first game was in Philadelphia, and the second game was here in DC. And so I went to Philadelphia, and Byron Scott was the coach. And I asked Byron Scott, when did you know that you needed to stop? Because Byron Scott was a very athletic player. If you're old like me, you remember Byron Scott in the league. And for him, it was that when he couldn't do the preparation anymore, right? Like if he only had to play a 26 minutes in a game on a Wednesday, he could probably still do that. But it's all the other stuff behind the scenes that like his body was just not having it anymore. And that made me think about Ryan Zimmerman, Howie Kendrick, all that time they have to spend with maintenance. And certainly Max Scherzer is doing a million things in between starts to be able to make his starts. So I think when that stuff catches up to you to the point where you don't want to tolerate it anymore, it just becomes so difficult. Um, Again, it's your kind of work-life balance. You debate with yourself whether it's worth it, and then you decide at some point it's not.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. From a legacy standpoint, his 2019 having a career year at age 35, did the
Right.
Nationals anticipate having him have that kind of production to that kind of level? I mean, he had over 300 average,
Right.
career home runs. Did the Nationals, when they traded for him from Philadelphia, did they know that Howie Kendrick had that in him?
I don't think so. If they said yes, I would say that you're a liar. I mean, if you look at his OPS, it was a big outlier season for him. I think what they knew was that they were getting someone who A, needed a fresh start, B, was a known commodity as a line drive hitter the opposite way, right? Whenever I thought of Howie Kendrick, that's always what I thought of. Like he's just shooting line drives over the second baseman's head all the time and into right field. But he had more power in that year, as you just mentioned, in 2019. He was just really steady. He fit in great with the group. Him and Adam Eaton, as we saw, kind of came up with a bond. And you never know who's going to blend together in the clubhouse. It's like I don't know if I would have predicted that those two guys would be as friendly as they were in the clubhouse. Just like when Gio Gonzalez and Jonathan Papelbon were here, they became boys, and I was like, really? That's kind of an odd pairing to me. But I mean, Gio's a really friendly guy, and Papelbon is, kind of
Not so
the
much.
character that he is, right? So, but they hit it off for whatever reason, and that can happen in clubhouses, and we saw that with Adam Eaton and Howie Kendrick, and you know that's kind of what happens when you win titles and you're not an annual juggernaut. Obviously, the Nationals have been a very good regular season team for quite some time now, right? But for teams to break through, you need all your stars to be stars, and then you need these other guys like out of nowhere, someone has a monster season to kind of back all that up, and you can finally get over the hump.